Water has a surface tension strong enough to carry a small animal. When we pollute water with detergents, we start a chain of events with hardly foreseeable results. For a whole community of small water dwellers, as well as the bigger animals that depend on them, detergents can mean total ruin. When water loses its surface tension, all surface dwellers sink and drown. Some spiders have developed mechanisms to breathe underwater. These intertidal spiders hunt on the rocks at low tide. They have massively long fangs and are also exceptionally belligerent. Each spider has a hunting territory which he will defend most vigorously. With the rising tide, they have to abandon their hunting and fighting to seek shelter, because they are obviously not designed for surviving in the breaking surf. A rock crevice or an empty seashell is hastily occupied, and the entrance is covered with a web of silk. Strange as it may seem, this flimsy and permeable sieve of fine silk threads forms a perfect water barrier, since the surface tension holds the water wall intact on the outside, and the trapped air bubble has nowhere to escape. A housing crisis is a serious matter for these spiders, and leads to desperate conflict when the tide is rising. The evicted spider might still survive if he can manage to hang on to the rock. His body hair is water repellent and traps a thin air film around him. With his breathing spiracles opening into this diver's lung, he can get oxygen out of the water via his small air supply. The progeny of the intertidal spider are raised inside a protective air bubble under a shell which is fastened to the rocks with silk. In this shell, the female lays her eggs and the little spiders hatch. At low tide and high tide, they are safely hidden and dry in their shelter. Like all intertidal life, these spiders are on the endangered list. Sea and beach pollution by oil and chemical waste are threatening to destroy the whole living world of the intertidal zone. To us, killing has become a spectator sport limited to the television screen. Out there, in real life and in nature, it is stark reality, an inescapable and necessary reality without which life as we know it could not survive. We have inherited an instinctive aversion to predators, but if you can shake off this subjective bias for a while, I will show you how necessary and beautifully efficient nature's eliminators really are. Let us leave this depressing scene of pollution and go to the place where man has done least damage, the desert. In these inhospitable surroundings, the opposite of the water world, are also spiders, and very curious ones too. The so-called white lady spider and her kin are hunting spiders. They do not build webs and snares, but hunt on foot and attack their prey with brute force. She is a fearless and aggressive lady, not even intimidated by a human being looming over her. Like most hunting spiders, she can inflict a painful bite, but the poison is not very potent. Her staple diet consists of small reptiles and insects, some of which are quite a match for her. This little darkling beetle, with his thick skin and sharp mandibles, certainly is. The white lady may get into serious trouble if she meets a predator larger than herself. Her escape strategy in this event is simple but absolutely ingenious. Just watch it. This virtually brainless animal has discovered the wheel and a way of moving faster than her legs could carry her. Most spiders are in fact hunters that overwhelm their prey with speed and force. Only a few have developed the finer art of catching with webs. The thousands of species of hunting spiders are also our most valuable allies in keeping the insect numbers of the world in check. There are even spiders that specialize exclusively on termite prey. This termite killer hides away in the mine dumps of termite nests, and from here occasionally raid the foraging columns of termite workers. It must be one of the fastest predators of all. This sequence is retarded 4 times, and yet one can hardly follow his actions. It is interesting to note that the other termites, usually very wary creatures that will flee underground at the slightest alarm, do not seem to be unduly perturbed by his attack. Maybe his speed has something to do with this. But even this fast hunter will meet his fate, this time in the form of a spider wasp. Spider wasps paralyze their prey with one well-aimed sting into the nerve center that controls the spider's legs. The wasp then buries the spider and lays an egg on him. Often the wasp will bite off the spider's legs to make sure that the living but paralyzed food store for her offspring will not make legs. Jumping spiders are another group of spiders who rely on speed for their kill. They can jump incredible distances and have one pair of huge eyes which can shift their retina around, enabling the spider to change his field of vision without moving. These spiders perform elaborate hand signaling in their mating rituals, the same as some tropical flies do. With these small, aggressive predators, with their keen eyesight, it is obviously advisable to come to an agreement at a safe distance. A number of these little jumping spiders mimic ants, and some of these mimics are accurate to the most incredible detail. Even for a keen observer, it is hard to tell the spiders from the ants. Even the 2 supernumerary legs of the spider are cunningly concealed by stretching them forward like ant feelers. The main reason for this mimicry is that the ants are evil-tasting. The camouflage makes it possible for a spider to disappear among thousands of bad-tasting lookalikes, which even statistically is already a good way to reduce his chances of being caught. Many ants are aggressive predators themselves, and the spider imposters are wise enough to avoid confrontations. Now we see the ant. Now it's the spider. Now the ant, now the spider. Crab spiders have a quite different strategy. They camouflage themselves by mimicking the color of the flowers they sit on. When they are disturbed, they do an abseil on a hastily spun safety line and return along the same route when the coast is clear. In a flowering bush, virtually every flower may be occupied by one of these ambushing spiders. Unless you are the bigger one, it is unwise to land on a neighbor's flower. Like all spiders, crab spiders have no misgivings about cannibalism. Normally, they live off pollinating insects like bees. The small male hides himself near a hunting female. While the female feeds off her catch, the impatient bees do not seem worried by her at all, and in fact seem to worry the spider. While the bees carry on as if nothing has happened, the male now moves to try his luck. When the female is occupied and her belly full, it's the only time he can venture near. This time he was still too early and gets chased off. The tradition with spiders that the male only gets a chance to mate when the female is well fed has two obvious reasons. Firstly, the puny male could easily become prey himself. And secondly, the female can only produce eggs on a full stomach. A crab spider male is a real cradle snatcher. He monopolizes the female before she even reaches maturity. Once he manages to get on her back, he spins a safety mat to hang on to. Here he will sit without food until the female molts, which will give him a safe mating chance. Hunting spiders are very much dependent on the immediate results of their poison to get their prey. Most of the dangerously poisonous spiders are hunters and not web builders. The majority of spider bite cases in humans are the work of sac spiders, which like to build their shelters in curtains, clothing, and bedding. This spider's bite causes a painful ulceration, but is not lethally dangerous. Much worse is the violin spider. These cave dwellers have taken to living in garages and other buildings in some parts of Africa. Their bite causes massive tissue destruction, and without treatment can lead to gangrene and death. The hand of this violin spider victim could only be saved by repeated plastic surgery. The most dangerous spider in Africa is fortunately limited to sandy, semi-desert areas which are sparsely populated, and few cases of this spider's bite have been recorded. Known as the six-eyed crab spider, or Sicarius, he has the habit of covering himself with a thin layer of sand to lie in ambush for prey. In this position, he can survive for over 6 months without feeding. As far as we know, the spider's bite is always lethal, causing massive tissue destruction, including the blood vessels. The only patient that survived what may have been a Sicarius bite is this little boy. There are also two dangerous web-building spiders in Africa, known as button spiders and closely related to the black widow. The less poisonous brown button spider has spiny egg sacs. The more dangerous black one has smooth egg sacs. A healthy person will survive a bite, but the symptoms of the nerve poison are very distressing. While they are hardly poisonous, baboon spiders make up with strength and fangs longer than a centimeter. They can handle large prey, as we shall presently see. In this drama, the victim's instinct to go for shelter in a crisis is his downfall.
spiders look much like tarantulas and are favorite pets with people who like the gruesome and macabre. These spiders, however, are protected game, a unique status for an adult arthropod. The reason for this extraordinary measure is that they are extremely long-lived, living up to 20 years, and have a correspondingly low reproduction in the wild.
In captivity, they do poorly and mostly die without feeding. Undoubtedly, the hunting spiders are the most versatile and effective predators of small arthropods in nature, feeding off virtually all small animals, including each other. They have adapted to all environments, from the oceans to the deserts. A very few of them are dangerous, but the overwhelming majority are our invaluable allies against all possible insect pests which only they can keep under control. Some people entertain the idea that technology is typically human, evil, and unnatural. They blame technology for ecological disasters and urge us to return to a primitive existence in nature. They are wrong on two counts. Technology does not spoil nature. It is the way we apply it that does. And secondly, nature itself is full of highly sophisticated technology. Spiders were admired since ancient times as the master spinners and weavers. The secret of their craft is centered around their 6 spinnerets. Through these, they can extrude a variety of plastic-like substances which harden in the air to spiderweb threads. To top it all, every one of these plastic products is fully biodegradable. While we can also boast sophisticated technology, the price we have to pay for ours is exorbitant, not only in money, but most of all in the environmental misery we have to suffer. Spider nests are, in contrast to our dwellings, always multi-purpose designs, like these space frames that will also knock down flying prey. Another good bet on the spider real estate market is this funnel unit, guaranteed to keep the owner's table well supplied. For the choosy house owner who prefers a constant climate and added security, there is an underground trapdoor cottage available for the price of some earth moving and a few milligrams of silk. These tunnel dwellings, by the way, are always built in hard, compacted soil and provided with a Velcro-like seal around the trapdoor, which can only be undone from below. While this design does not provide meals, it offers a safe and comfortable lookout on the culinary possibilities. A special feature the architect has attended to is the lightweight and practically invisible door, which is also guaranteed waterproof. Privacy is an invaluable asset, particularly when undesirable elements roam the same neighborhood. centipedes have a particular taste for trapdoor spiders and also have the tools and technique to break and enter. Unfortunately, no security system is safe against the really professional burglar. The particularly security-conscious trapdoor spiders have therefore invested in a second door, which grows on their backside in the form of an armor plate. A device many a naughty child would certainly envy them. Other spiders prefer the other extreme and move upstairs to get away from it all. How these tiny jumping spiders manage to drag the massive beetle shells up a grass stalk remains an unsolved mystery. The beetle's back door is revamped into a spider's front door. The desert sand seems an unlikely place to build a tunnel web, but some spider species have adapted their building technique most admirably to this terrain. A variation of the trapdoor spider is this desert spider that constructs a trapdoor nest which looks like an animal's footprint in the loose sand and blends in unobtrusively between the hundreds of tracks of small animals. In reality, this footprint is an underground minefield for unwary insects. Under the snare in her tunnel, the spider waits for any movement on her roof. The desert beetle managed to free himself because of his size and strength, and was lucky only to lose a hand and a leg. The spider really lost out this time, since she has to rebuild her whole web. First, she binds single sand grains with silk into a round carpet. This will form the ceiling of her web and the minefield for her prey. The maimed beetle, who belongs to one of the fastest running beetle species, is limping off. It looks as if he's not getting much sympathy from his colleagues. Back at the ranch, the spider is completing her new carpet. The next step is to somersault underneath this construction, from where the finishing touches are stitched to the edges. The 4 exit holes are cleared and trimmed. And the desert wind sees to the final finish and camouflage. Now the waiting starts, and it may last for many weeks. This spider is exceptionally lucky, for within a day, a next customer happens along. Ants are a manageable size, and the spider's ingenious trap pays off at last. This spider has a set of tripwire spokes which alert him to possible prey. But in this case, to a series of false alarms. Sitting with all 8 legs forward in his tunnel, he can jump out like a jack-in-the-box. The spitting spider is even more thrifty with silk. He entangles his prey at a distance with a squirted jet of sticky liquid. The ultimate in spider technology are the elaborate nets of orb web spiders. The construction of these masterworks is done through a complicated sequence of steps. First, the mainstays are anchored. These threads are sturdy and strengthened further by multiple wiring. The spider gets the spans across by lowering herself and producing a length of thread that can be flown out on the wind like a kite. In this way, she builds bridges between branches, and these will form the framework of her net. Next, the radial threads are laid. All the radial threads meet at the same angle in the middle. These threads are not sticky and serve as ladders for the spider, who will, without fail, put her 8 legs only on these threads, even at high speed. The last step is beautifully illustrated by this kite spider, who is laying the spiral of sticky catching threads. Sometimes the spider works clockwise and sometimes anti-clockwise. Spiders seem to be ambidextrous. Joint by joint is measured off like a sailor paying out fathoms. The sticky threads are little marvels in themselves. They are actually microscopic tubes of silk filled with a sticky substance which gradually and continuously oozes out to the surface. A technological masterpiece which boggles the mind. The neatness and symmetry of the completed web is not only technically amazing, it certainly also appeals to our aesthetic sense. Spiders need to have limitless patience. For days on end, they might not catch as much as a midge. When and if they do catch something, their problems are not necessarily over. These parasitic flies are incredibly dexterous acrobats who manage to stay out of trouble with the deadly swaying web and the spider. The aggressive gestures of the spider don't impress them. Nonchalantly, they steal the food literally out of the clutches of death. They even settle on the non-sticky radial threads, which they can apparently distinguish from the sticky ones. Many spiders build a new web every morning, and in the evening pack up the whole show. The silk is then eaten and recycled. A drop of dew on the threads is enjoyed as a sundowner. Suspended on a single thread, they spend the night in safety between sky and earth. Here is also the time and place to molt when this becomes necessary. High up in the forest canopy live spiders that build their webs only for the night shift. These webs are made as invisible as possible, and the spider mostly hides next to the web. To notify himself of visitors, he installs a telephone line to the center of his web. With one leg on the line, he feels for a nibble. The next action will depend on the message he picks up. A good prey, like a moth, will send him rushing down his telephone line to wrap up the booty in a silk cocoon. A quick injection with poison subdues the victim inside. Just watch how cleverly the spider uses his 8 legs to suspend himself and his prey, and to spin it around at the same time. The orb web spider, here shown in slow motion, illustrates the technique. The silk factory works at top speed and produces a whole ribbon of silk which traps the prey in an impenetrable cell. At normal speed, this all happens in a matter of seconds. Here we get a good view of the 6 spinnerets. Back in slow motion, we see the end of the action and the spider leaving for his pantry. Spiders are among the most crafty camouflage specialists, since they often have to sit for hours in ambush. In this position, they will easily fall prey to larger predators. Usually, they are not easy to spot in their natural environment. Some will even hide between the carcasses of their prey. And look exactly like a shriveled insect mummy themselves. Other spiders build nests close to ground level and provide their web with a conspicuous marker. This may warn off large animals, but also glows in strong ultraviolet colors and may attract pollinators of flowers. An amazing variation on the orb web was discovered 50 years ago by the famous South African arachnologist Lawrence. This spider was only rediscovered many years later. We searched the tropical jungle for many nights for the curious master of web artists, the web-throwing spider. In the densest and oldest forests, this spider comes out at night to practice his art. Between the creepers and thickets, it is hard enough to move, let alone trace a perfectly camouflaged little spider. The first find was a disappointment. Well camouflaged indeed, but not the right species. In fact, the whole jungle was full of well-camouflaged spiders, only not the one we were looking for. The search continued for many a night. But at last, we did get a glimpse of the mysterious spider, only to lose it out of sight a few seconds later. At long last, our quest was rewarded with an unforgettable spectacle which few people have seen. The spider starts off like any web builder by laying a frame. But then provides this frame with a set of coiled threads which she crinkles with her hind legs. When this is done, she changes the whole standard recipe by biting off the stays and taking the net into her 4 front legs, ready for a throw. Spiders have perfected the art of making the most out of the least. A few milligrams of silk will provide protection, shelter, food, safety lines, telephone lines, packaging material, and egg pouches. It is produced when and where it is needed, never wasted. Often it is recycled by the spider. If not, it is biodegradable anyway. Perhaps the main difference between our technology and that of spiders, what an embarrassing thought, is lack of foresight and intelligent planning. On our side, not on theirs.
many species, overpopulation means a fate worse than death. But a fate that hardly ever materializes in nature, thanks to the efficient culling programs of the specialized predators. These gruesomely efficient killing machines fill us with instinctive horror, but they are in fact the guarantee against mass starvation of their prey. Both the sun spider and the gecko are merciless killers, although we are quite irrationally fond of the cute little gecko and repulsed by the sun spider. The relentless, unemotional natural laws of balance put paid to such human prejudices. These laws dictate that both predator and prey shall have their numbers controlled. The sun spider is actually an imposter. It doesn't have poison fangs, but possesses a powerful pair of scissors-like jaws instead. In spite of its ferocious appearance, it therefore depends entirely on speed, and is quite harmless to man, but perhaps not to fingers. In the barren sand dunes of the Namib, many animals have come up with ingenious adaptations to this hostile environment. Darkling beetles like these have perfected the art of swimming in sand, for which their blade-like sides are a great help. Sand diving as a strategy to escape the scorching midday sun is also practiced by a variety of other Namib animals. This minute little sun spider buries its compact, hairy body with its short bow legs by rowing vigorously while simultaneously somersaulting into the sand. Most sun spiders, however, are tunnelers and diggers, even in loose desert sand. They usually spend the day in their tunnels, emerging for the hunt at night. A few do just the opposite, sleeping at night and hunting during the hottest time of day. They are fearlessly aggressive and will tackle any potential prey even in the face of stacked odds. But what match would a sun spider be for this deadly scorpion, whose poison is enough to kill a man? Just like a heavily armored, dismounted knight, the scorpion is forced to make a stand. This time, the clumsy scorpion was lucky. It managed to land one accurate shot of poison right between the sun spider's eyes before the sun spider's deadly scissors could go to work on it. And now the scorpion does an astounding thing. Still grasped in the pincers of death, it seems to go to sleep. Describes how a witch doctor gave him a demonstration of scorpion hypnosis. The trick has little to do with real hypnosis. It's simply a matter of irritating and scaring the scorpion to the point where his death-feigning defense strategy sets in. Obviously, the trick requires some dexterity and knowledge of scorpion behavior. It's not advisable to try it yourself, as the sun spider has shown. As soon as the scorpion feels out of danger, he revives quite miraculously. The sun spider, on the other hand, will definitely not recover. Below his legs, we can see these curious organs, which are incredibly sensitive and directional vibration detectors. The ears that help him locate his prey. The scorpion now demonstrates another of his defense mechanisms. The warning hiss is produced by rubbing the sting against the tail segments. These tails have specific patterns of sculpture which ensure successful mating. And with sensitive setae, the sting feels out the vulnerable spots on prey. The microscopic drop of venom is by volume more poisonous than that of any snake. In spite of this venom, some thick-skinned predators just love a scorpion and don't seem much the worse for wear after such a deadly meal. Some scorpions have thin tails and massive pincers. These species depend on brute force to capture their prey and then dismember it with their two sets of scissors-like mouthparts, just like our sun spiders. Other species have small pincers but thick, muscular tails. They depend on the effect of their venom, and these are the really poisonous ones. After a scorpion's meal, all that remains are neatly emptied sarcophagi. Scorpions have adapted to a variety of habitats. Some are extremely flat and live in narrow rock crevices. Others dig tunnels, even in desert sand. Yet others only live under loose bark. Mating is a risky business for scorpions. A misjudgment as to the species of the partner, or even one mistake in the courting ritual, can have painful consequences, particularly for the male, who is the weaker and smaller gender. Every species, therefore, has a mating ritual, which starts at a safe distance with tail wagging and other signs. Eventually, the male circumspectly closes the female's pincers in his and starts the famous scorpion dance. Apart from pushing and pulling, it consists of a curious kissing with the mouthparts. Tail wagging forms part of the ritual throughout. From the male's point of view, the purpose of the whole exercise is to drag the female onto a flat, firm surface where he secures his sperm holder with a special glue. He then pulls the female over the sperm holder in such a way that she will pick it up in her genital opening. This accomplished, he makes off without further ado, because from now on the female has only one priority: eating. After so much excitement, exertion and stress, the exhausted male badly needs a drink or two. The eggs of scorpions hatch before or just after birth. The newly born scorpions are soft and defenseless, but their aggressive instincts already show when a fly bothers them. Very carefully, the mother scoops them up with her murderous pincers and helps them onto her back. Here they will stay for some weeks, and if one now gets left behind, he is doomed for certain. Only when they have molted to teenagers can the little scorpions venture out on their own. One by one, they leave the safety of their mother's back to start their very own little killing business. In order to reach full size, a scorpion has to molt several times. Although the new skin is soft and can be formed by blood pressure inside, it is obviously quite a problem to get the string of new tail segments out of their old mold. The scorpion is now quite soft, and again as defenseless as a newborn babe. Only after several hours will the new skin be hard enough to support the muscles for walking. It is well known that scorpions fluoresce in ultraviolet light. Possibly this helps them see and find each other in moon and starlight. Even the freshly shedded skin has a strong UV fluorescence. Most predators approach a scorpion with circumspection, and many lose their appetite after a few timid attempts. Others are more persistent. The jackal has obviously seen scorpions before, and while much tempted by this juicy morsel, also tries to keep well out of harm's way. Eventually, he manages to sever one pincer and decides that this is a reasonable compromise. A wounded scorpion can get a bacterial infection. Such a sick scorpion does something amazing. Otherwise light shy, he will expose himself to the sun and give himself an artificial fever, basking his body to 40 degrees Celsius, which the scorpion can just barely survive, but the bacteria not. A scorpion seems to know that centipedes have an independent brain in every segment and must be immobilized by pinching every segment in turn. Centipedes are vicious predators themselves, and some of the giant scolopenders can certainly face up to a scorpion or even turn the tables on him. The foremost legs of the centipede are transformed to powerful poisoned claws, and large tropical species can inflict a sting which can even be fatal to man. As with millipedes, their name is misleading. They rarely have 100 legs, usually much fewer. Their gait is very characteristic. Alternative legs on consecutive segments are lifted, ensuring that the beast will neither tilt nor belly flop. The last legs have powerful but non-poisonous claws. These are to anchor the centipede in a tunnel in attack and defense situations. Centipedes have many enemies. And some have quite elaborate defenses. This tropical species from Natal has modified tailhooks, which can make a surprisingly loud racket. The centipede-eating snake is apparently sidetracked by these noisy, whirling leaves. Centipedes can run backward just as well as forward, something which must often be necessary in the confined spaces where they hunt and are hunted. When they lose a leg, they can grow it back. With every molt, it grows a bit more. A rare species from Namibia, in fact, has more than 100 legs. It may have as many as 160. This species only lives off termites, which it hunts in never-ending loops through the tunnels of their nests. Termites are the juicy hamburgers of the insect world, and if it were not for their soldiers, they would certainly have been wiped out long ago. The centipede can apparently take quite a lot of punishment from the soldiers that squirt it with their jets of sticky acid. After his departure, many empty termite skins testify to the visit of the centipede. With such effective predators around, arthropods are hardly threatened by overpopulation. If the prey becomes decimated, the predators will suffer and decrease. In this way, both predator and prey numbers keep each other in balance. This simple but effective mechanism has guaranteed the survival and quality control of millions of species over millions of years. We have rid ourselves of our predators. We have in fact beaten all restraints on our numbers. Only if we can manage to replace the maternal restraints on our numbers by self-restraint can we escape the worst of fates, death by overpopulation. It seems that we have conveniently forgotten that this death is indefinitely worse than death by predator.